Hello guys, today we are continuing our journey of exploring the Bogoljubov defense, and that is pawn to d4 and a funny knight to c6. So perhaps you are all wondering what happens if white plays pawn to d5 here, but that we are going to be analyzing in the next video. Today we are still going to analyze variations that arise after pawn to c4. I just want to save the best for last, and also I wanted to cover this line where they basically go for the same setup as before, but they are going to capture the pawn on d5. So just to explain, if you haven't watched the other videos, basically pawn to c4 is what you are going to be facing the most. I recommend you to develop the knights first. Knight to c3 is the most played move, and here pawn to d5. In the previous videos we've been looking at bishop to f4, which can lead to Morpheus defense, or knight to f3, but I just want to include this variation of them capturing the pawn on d5, because it leads to some fun chess variations. Alright, so we are going to, of course, recapture the pawn with our knight, and here by far the most played move is pawn to e4. I just want to mention, if they capture the knight on d5, it is not going to be very good for them, and the position is already better for black. We get to develop our queen to d5, and in this position the only move that gets played is, of course, knight to f3, and then we can bring our bishop to f5. Now here they have an opportunity to blunder very hard if they play bishop to f4, which is the second most played move, and that just gets them into a lot of trouble, because we can immediately play pawn to e5, and they shouldn't, but most guys are going to grab this pawn, and here we are not going to go for a queen exchange, but we are going for queen to e4. Now this bishop is hit, but also we have so much pressure. We have this move coming with a check. We will later be able to get long castled and get our rook on this open file. And yeah, basically anything they do here is not going to work for them, and we are winning. Just to give you an example, if they play pawn to e3 to try to save the bishop, here comes bishop to b4 check. So the king moves over, but here queen to c4 check, and this is checkmate. Let's go back. So bishop to f4 is not playable, but anyways most guys here will play the correct move, which is pawn to e3. But after that I recommend you to get long castled, and now white has only sort of one good move, and that is queen to b3, but that doesn't even get played very often. By far most guys are going to be developing the bishop to either d3 or e2, but both of these moves are not very helpful in terms of dealing with this pressure that we have on the d file. So for example, they play bishop to d3, we can grab this, they have to recapture with their queen, and a quick e5 is going to be our pawn winning move, or how to say this. In all of these variations we are going to be able to win a pawn by force, and that would lead to a much better position for black. I will elaborate on these variations in the Liche study that will be linked below. Let's just not get too much deep into these variations, as they are not very likely to go for these knight captures on d5 anyways. So they usually continue with pawn to e4 in this position, which is a much better move than capturing the knight. And here we are going to capture the knight, they have to recapture with their pawn, and we are going to quickly play pawn to e5. So we are asking them a question, what are they going to do with their pawn on d4? So capturing this pawn would allow us to trade queens in a beneficial way for black. So that's not going to be allowed by white. Also that would leave them with the isolated c-pawn, which will be a great weakness. Also this pawn will be isolated. So of course by far the most played move here is not capturing the pawn, but pushing pawn to d5. So our knight is attacked, and in this position we want to look a little bit confused, like we are not sure where we want to go with our knight, and only then play knight to a5. This way they are going to be more mindful of this move, queen to a4, which is what we want them to play, and it is not the strongest move, and then they shouldn't play this, but most guys do. And it just looks very tempting, and it looks like they are going to be punishing us somehow, because now it is a check and the knight is hit, and yeah, but we have this move pawn to c6, and this blocks the check. Also it protects the knight with our queen, but white may be still confident about their attack because it just looks like they are getting somewhere. In reality, the position is getting better and better for black, especially if they capture the pawn on c6, which is once again the most played move. White is looking to, capture on b7, get this discovery check and maybe make another queen, but of course we are simply going to capture the pawn with our knight, and in this variation bishop to b5 is the most played move, which is once again not the best way to continue for white. Looks like they have some pressure going on against our king, but we can simply develop our bishop to d7, block this diagonal, and now actually white is in a little bit of a trouble, because what they have to play according to the engine, they should retreat the bishop back to c4, because if they don't, then we will be allowed to play pawn to a6, and this will basically force an exchange of their bishop for our knight, and we will have a bishop pair, and they will lose their strongest piece, which is the light square bishop in this position, and nobody plays this bishop back to c4. So here most guys are going to simply develop a knight to f3, preparing to get castled. But we can play pawn to a6, and now they cannot really stop us from getting the desired exchange. Because even if they would try to save the bishop, for example move it somewhere, we are still going to be able to play like knight to d4, hunting down the bishop, and they cannot move it because now their queen is hit. So in this position they would have to go all the way back to d1 with their queen, and we will be able to capture the bishop and get ourselves a bishop pair on an open chessboard. And with them having this weak c-pawn, this position is winning for black. And let's see some other moves. If they would try to go for bishop to d3, then once again just knight to b4, and the same story. The bishop is hit, the queen is hit, we will be winning the bishop pair. And bishop to c4 in this position simply walks into this fork, which is like super winning. So what they have to do, and what they usually do here, is trade the bishop for the knight in this manner. But after that we even win a tempo on the queen, so the queen goes back to c2 usually, and here, well, our pawn is hanging, so we will have to deal with this first, and I suggest you to play pawn to f6, and after this usually they get castled, and we can play this maybe a little bit suspicious looking move, queen to d7. But the point of this move is we want to create this battery on this diagonal, and it also comes with this funny trap. If white will think that we are just hoping to get long castled here, maybe they will try to stop us by playing rook to d1, hitting our queen and, hoping that our queen moves somewhere away, and they will be controlling this whole d-file. But no, we have a cool move here, and that is bishop to a4, skewering the queen and the rook, and they are forced to now exchange the queens in this manner. And if for some reason they think they are safe to just capture this pawn, which is hanging, then we have this really nice move, getting long castled, which is hitting the rook with our king, but also threatening this check, which would lead into a checkmate in two moves. So this was a big blunder by white, grabbing the pawn on b7. But let's go back. Of course, they shouldn't even play rook to d1. What they should do is develop, and they should play something like bishop to e3. This is the suggested move by Stockfish, and here we are going to utilize this battery of ours by playing bishop to a4 anyways. Now our bishop is on a super useful square, not only hitting the queen, but also controlling this whole diagonal and preventing any of the rooks to come to the d file in the future. Here queen to b2 is suggested by the Stockfish, and we actually want to go for a queen exchange. And white shouldn't accept this. If they accept our queen and grab it, we are not even going to recapture with our bishop, but with our pawn. And as strange as it appears, we just want to keep this bishop as annoying as possible. And in the long run, we also want this bishop to join him in being annoying and just control these squares and make it really painful for white to even use their rooks. And well, what we want to do next is just put pressure on this weak pawn. Also, this is a very weak pawn. We will be able to play like bishop to c2 to harass it, and well, we will be also able to put our rook on the c file to harass this pawn, and in the near future we are going to be able to simply win one of these pawns, and after that the whole position will collapse for white, and that's why this is a winning position for black. And even if they don't accept the queen exchange and move their queen, for example, if they move the queen to d2, we are simply going to be able to develop our rook with the tempo, hit the queen, and well, the same story, just keep our bishops annoying, maybe get castled and put pressure on white weaknesses. So that's why they should go for like queen to c1, and you know, that's just a passive game for white, and this is basically how you can get a better position as black playing the Bogoljubov Defense exchange variation, or how to name this. Alright guys, definitely check out the Leech's study, as there will be, you know, I will be covering more variations there. And as always, stay safe, take care, have fun, and bye.